Let's get this new week started right here on Community Radio Networks. We have all the information here for you to take on this week. Let's start with today. It's Monday, the 29th of January, and you are tuned to Community Radio Networks. We will start with the world news first. This is Community Radio Networks and the world news right now. We have 3 U.S. Army soldiers who've been killed and more than 30 service members injured in this drone attack overnight on a small U.S. outpost in Jordan, marking the first time that U.S. troops have been killed by enemy fire in the Middle East since the beginning of the Gaza war. We shall respond, said President Biden while speaking in South Carolina yesterday. The killing of these 3 Americans at Tower 22 in Jordan near the border with Syria is a significant escalation of an already precarious situation in the Middle East. Officials said the drone was fired by Iran-backed militants and appeared to come from Syria. It is still being determined which militia group specifically is responsible. The U.S. Central Command confirmed in a statement that these 3 service members were killed and at least 34 injured in this one-way drone attack that impacted at a base in northeast Jordan. President Biden faces intensifying pressure to confront Iran directly after the country's proxies killed 3 American soldiers in this drone strike in Jordan. And we do have Iran seeking to distance itself from a deadly attack on the U.S. base in Jordan by Tehran-backed militants as President Biden faced mounting pressure to respond fiercely against the Islamic Republic. This was the day that President Biden and his team had feared for more than 3 months, the day that relatively low-level attacks by Iranian proxy groups on U.S. troops in the Middle East turned deadly and intensified the pressure on the president to respond in kind. With 3 U.S. service members killed and 24 more injured by this drone in Jordan, Biden must decide how far he is willing to go in terms of retaliation at the risk of a wider war that he has sought to avoid ever since the October 7 terrorist attack by Hamas touched off the current Middle East crisis. The Iraqi government, meanwhile, has condemned this attack that killed the 3 U.S. service members in Jordan, describing it as part of an escalation which threatens regional stability and urging an end to the cycle of violence. The United States, of course, accusing Iran-backed militant groups in Syria and Iraq of carrying out the attack. This first deadly blow against U.S. forces since the eruption of the Gaza conflict touched off violence across the Middle East. And the main UN agency in Gaza is in turmoil after Israel accused some of its staff members of involvement in Hamas's October 7th terror attacks. The UN Relief and Workers Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East has fired several employees in the wake of these allegations, which have not been made public. Since its establishment, the UN General Assembly, a voting body of all member states, has repeatedly renewed the mandate there, and the agency has provided aid to 4 generations of Palestine refugees, covering education, healthcare, camp infrastructure, social services, and emergency assistance, including in times of conflict. At least 152 of the UNRWA staffers have been killed in Gaza since the Israel-Hamas war began. And UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has promised legal consequences following these allegations that employees of the UNRWA were involved in the attacks on Israel on the 7th of October. Austria is suspending payments to the aid agency pending a full investigation into the accusations that its employees were involved. And Japan said it is joining other countries in suspending funding of the UN agency. Turkey is concerned about the decision of some countries to suspend this funding for the UN agency for Palestinians and urging them to reconsider their move. Luxembourg said it will continue to provide the funding to the UN agency in Gaza, despite allegations that some of its staff were involved in the Hamas's October 7th attacks, and UN officials and aid groups calling for countries to reconsider their decision to pause the funding. UNRWA said it would not be able to continue its operations in Gaza and across the region beyond the end of this month if funding were not resumed. The European Union has demanded an urgent audit of the UN Palestinian Refugee Agency. Heavy fighting raged in Gaza amid a fierce row over the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees that had called off its future into question. And diplomatic efforts to find a solution gathered pace as the head of the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, as well as top Egyptian, Qatari and Israeli officials were in Paris working for a ceasefire in Gaza. Israel launched an assault overnight on Gaza's main northern city after pulling back from there. 140 Palestinians at least have been killed in overnight Israeli strikes in Gaza. And Israeli protesters blocked humanitarian aid trucks from entering the war-torn Gaza Strip, forcing the lorries to turn around at a crossing with the Palestinian territory. And hundreds gathered in the latest protest at the Kerem Shalom crossing, despite the army saying in a statement it had declared the area a closed military zone. The Biden administration is discussing using weaponry sales to Israel as leverage to convince the government of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to heed long-standing U.S. calls to scale back its military assault in the Gaza Strip. A British warship called the HMS Diamond has repelled a drone attack from Yemen's Houthi group in the Red Sea yesterday. Yemen's Houthi say they launched a rocket at the U.S. warship Louis Puller in the Gulf of Aden, and the Yemen-based group did not say whether the missile hit the vessel, which it claimed provides logistical support to the U.S. Navy. Texas State Senator Drew Springer has written a letter to the Senate calling to reopen the Senate's impeachment trial into Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, and says that Paxton is admitting guilt by trying to end the long-running whistleblower lawsuit against him by saying he will no longer contest the facts of the case. A bipartisan group of lawmakers in Congress is on the verge of striking a deal with the Biden administration that would enact sweeping new border controls, including the authority to pause asylum processes during spikes in migrant crossings. After weeks of closed-door negotiations, the White House and a trio of senators could unveil an agreement as early as this week. House Speaker Mike Johnson denounced President Biden's support of the Senate-backed U.S.-Mexico border deal, arguing he can use executive action to curtail the number of encounters the Customs and Border Protection deals with daily. President Biden is looking to stretch his legs and make a shift in his immigration tactics, vowing to shut down the U.S.-Mexico border if Congress passes a bipartisan bill to address the crisis. Texas is bracing for a convoy of truckers who are expected to arrive at Eagle Pass along the U.S.-Mexico border in Texas on Saturday, the 3rd of February. The convoy is of a so-called group of Christian conservatives that refer to themselves as God's Army. They claim they're sending a message to the Biden administration about border security, and the group claims the dark forces are working together with the U.S. government to keep the border open, and the convoy is expected to leave today from Virginia Beach. Large groups of concerned Americans are traveling towards the southern border to demand action from the Biden administration to fix the wide-open flood of illegal migrants. And this multi-state convoy is set to begin on the 3rd of February, as it comes as part of a multifaceted standoff between Texas and the Biden administration on how to deal with the ongoing border crisis. And the Biden administration has also, meanwhile, sued over the Texas law recently signed by Governor Abbott that allows state and local law enforcement to arrest illegal immigrants. And there has been another legal feud over the establishment of the buoys by Texas in the Rio Grande. Governor Abbott has said Texas has the right to self-defense against what he says is federal inaction about a migrant invasion. And House Republicans released 2 articles of impeachment against Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, formally unveiling the charges as they prepare to punish the secretary over the administration's handling of the U.S.-Mexico border. In this 20-page impeachment resolution, Republicans on the House Homeland Security Committee accused him of willful and systemic refusal to comply with the law and a breach of public trust, and the committee is set to meet tomorrow to consider the articles. GOP presidential candidate Nikki Haley slammed the Republican National Committee for pressuring her to drop out of the race. She told Kristen Walker on Meet the Press that the RNC was clearly not acting like an honest broker after the RNC chair, Ronna McDaniel, said the GOP should unite behind Trump. Haley's comments also come after it was reported that the RNC was weighing a resolution last week to declare the former president as the presumptive nominee. Firefighters in Argentina battling an out-of-control blaze in a national park in Patagonia, struggling to keep it from reaching 2 nearby towns. The fire in Los Alerces National Park, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, has already charred about 600 hectares. And the Russian Election Commission has registered Vladimir Putin as a presidential candidate. Also, Ukraine's defense forces continue to inflict losses on the Russians in its war of liberation, as the Ukrainians have killed over 1,000 Russian soldiers and destroyed destroyed 10 tanks and 16 artillery systems in the past day alone. Hungarian foreign minister has arrived in the western Ukrainian city of Uzhhorod today for bilateral talks with his Ukrainian counterpart, and the president's office said that a frank and constructive dialogue is expected. Hungary and Ukraine have had a contentious relationship that has worsened since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion, and Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has maintained close ties with Russia, backing the united front that the European Union has tried to present in support of Ukraine. We do have the European Union drawing up plans to cripple Hungary's economy if it blocks a 50 billion euro aid package for Ukraine at a Brussels summit this week. Olaf Scholz, the Chancellor of Germany, is once again calling upon the European partners to supply Ukraine with more financial and military aid. Finns headed to the polls to pick a new president yesterday to lead the country in its new role within NATO after it broke with decades of non-alignment to join the Western Defence Alliance in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In this news out of Helsinki, the Nordic country's admission to NATO last year drew threats of countermeasures from its much larger neighbour. And in December, Finland closed its entire border with Russia to passenger traffic in response to a surge in migrants trying to cross. Moscow denied the Finnish charges it was sending the migrants there. Italian Premier Giorgia Meloni opened a summit of African leaders today aimed at illustrating Italy's big development plan for the continent that her government hopes will stem migration flows, diversify sources of energy and forge a new relationship between Europe and Africa. Protesting farmers vowed to encircle Paris with tractor barricades and drive slows, aiming to lay siege to France's seat of power in a battle with the government over the future of their industry, which has been shaken by repercussions of the Ukraine war. The traffic blockages that farmers were starting to put in place on major highways heading for the French capital, host of the Summer Olympics in 6 months, and continued protests elsewhere in France, promised another difficult week for new Prime Minister Gabriel Attal, less than a month into his job. Princess Kate has returned home nearly 2 weeks after she was admitted to the hospital for a planned abdominal surgery. The Princess of Wales, who's 42 years old, is back at the Royals' home in Windsor to continue her recovery, and she's making good progress, according to the Kensington Palace statement. Japan's lunar lander has regained power a full 9 days after it landed on the moon's surface nearly upside down and was subsequently switched off. A change in the sun's position allowed the solar panels to receive light and charge the probe's battery, allowing JAXA, the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency, to re-establish communication. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the World News on Community Radio Networks on this Monday, the 29th of January. Taiwan's defense ministry announced that over 30 Chinese warplanes were headed towards its country in addition to Navy ships. 33 aircrafts were sent by the Chinese People's Liberation Army yesterday, and the aircrafts included Su-30 fighters. 6 Chinese Navy vessels were also headed to Taiwan, and 13 of China's warplanes crossed the median of the Taiwan Strait. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and his predecessor, Rodrigo Duterte, drew thousands of their supporters in separate rallies last night, highlighting a deepening rift that may split the alliance of the country's most powerful political families that won the 22 election. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. traded accusations of drug use with his predecessor Rodrigo Duterte in his first public rebuke of the former leader as the rift between the country's two most powerful political clans deepens. Jannik Sinner produced a comeback for the ages to outlast Daniel Medvedev 3-6, 3-6, 6-4, 6-4 and 6-3 in a high-quality final and win his maiden Grand Slam title at the Australian Open, becoming the new king of Melbourne Park. Sinner became the first Australian champion for a decade not to be named. And Novak Djokovic, Rafael Nadal or Roger Federer in the first men's title clash at Rod Laver Arena since 2005, not to feature any of the big three. West Indies speedster Shamar Joseph bowled through pain to rip through a shell-shocked Australia and helped deliver an extraordinary 8-run upset for his inexperienced side on day 4 of the second test in Brisbane. And the International Cricket Council said this morning it had lifted its ban on Sri Lankan cricket after Colombo promised to end political interference in the board's administration. The controversy related to alleged corruption in Sri Lanka's cricket board, the richest sporting body in a country still reeling from a crippling economic crisis. The ICC ban had prevented Sri Lanka from taking part in international events, and it lost an opportunity to host the Under-19 World Cup. But that has been lifted today. Bangladesh reported its first fatality this year from brain-damaging Nipah virus when a man died after drinking raw date juice. The virus, transmitted to humans through contact with bodily fluids of infected bats, pigs or other people, was first identified in 1999 during an outbreak affecting farmers and others in contact with pigs in Malaysia. Since then, it has led to outbreaks in Bangladesh, India and Singapore, killing more than 160 people in Bangladesh. And the nation's first case of this year was reported in Manikganj, some 50 kilometers from the capital of Dhaka. Following their shocking 28-run loss to England in the opening test in Hyderabad, India has fallen to 5th place in the World Test Championship rankings behind Bangladesh. And following their draw in the 2-test series against South Africa, India held the lead for a short while Australia overtook them after their win against Pakistan. With 3 straight victories under their belt, reigning champions India will try to maintain their winning streak when they play New Zealand in their Under-19 World Cup Super 6 stage match tomorrow. Indian warship INS Sumitra today ensured the safe release of an Iranian flag fishing vessel and its 17 crew members after it was hijacked by some pirates off the east coast of Somalia. The Indian Navy swiftly responded to this distress call from the vessel last night and have freed this Iranian fishing vessel that had been hijacked by pirates off the coast of Somalia in the latest attack against shipping in the Indian Ocean. In the face of escalating tensions and security concerns in the Red Sea region, the Indian Navy has taken a number of decisive steps to safeguard India's maritime interests, and the Navy's proactive stance comes amid the backdrop of the Israel-Hamas conflict and increasing threats from Houthi militants targeting commercial vessels. In keeping with this ongoing thrust on bolstering military ties with the Gulf countries, India kicked off the inaugural edition of the Sadat Tanseek military exercise with Saudi Arabia, while Defense Secretary Giridhar Armane is now headed for Oman to consolidate bilateral defense cooperation. It is the United States that has processed a record-breaking number of visas in 2023 and also cut short visitor visa appointment wait times by 75% in India. The U.S. Embassy and consulates in India processed 1.4 million visas last year, meeting the unprecedented demands across all visa classes. And the consular team issued over 140,000 visas to Indian students last year, which was more than in any other country of the world, setting the world record for the 3rd year in a row. Pro-China Maldivian President Mohamed Muizzu might soon face impeachment proceedings after the main opposition party, the Maldivian Democratic Party, which holds a majority in parliament, said it has gathered enough signatures to submit the motion. A total of 34 members, including representatives from both the MDP and the Democrats, have given their support to the motion for the impeachment of the president. Amid strains of soulful music, the beating retreat ceremony marking the culmination of the Republic Day celebrations got underway at the Vijay Chowk today. The Raisina Hills in the heart of the national capital reverberated with the sound of captivating and foot-tapping Indian tunes played by military and paramilitary bands. And President and Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces Draupadi Murmu arrived at the venue in the traditional buggy, adding to the old world charm of the event that traces its origins in the early 1950s. The central government has extended a ban on terror organization SIMI as an unlawful organization for another 5 years, bolstering Prime Minister Modi's vision of zero tolerance against terrorism. Students' Islamic Movement of India, SIMI, has been declared as an unlawful association for a further period of 5 years. And tensions prevailed in Karnataka's village today, a day after protests erupted over the removal of a saffron Hanuman flag by the district administration. Security has also been stepped up in the area as the situation remains tense but under control. The protests continued throughout the day today, with people demanding that the flag hoisted atop a 108-foot pole be reinstated. The police and administration had hoisted the tricolour, replacing the Hanuman Dhwaj. A man managed to breach the security parameter of Delhi airport and reach the tarmac before being arrested, creating a security lapse during the heightened alert in the national capital due to the Republic Day celebrations. And this incident occurred yesterday when the pilot of an Air India flight noticed this intoxicated man on the tarmac. Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir-Abdollahian has said there was no doubt that militants located in the border area of Pakistan and Iran were led and supported by third countries. It is no doubt that these terrorists located in the common border regions are supported by third parties, he said in his remarks while addressing a joint conference alongside interim Foreign Minister Jalil Abbas Gilani in Islamabad. He had arrived in Pakistan earlier today, following which he and the Foreign Minister Gilani discussed bilateral cooperation between the two countries. 9 Pakistani workers were gunned down by unidentified attackers in Iran's Sistan-Baluchistan province near the border with Pakistan as the neighboring countries have sought to ease tensions after deadly cross-border fire. And it is a magnificent bowling show that was led by speedster Ubaid Shah following a rocket-solid, unbeaten stand between openers Shahzeb Khan and Sharmil Hussain that steered Pakistan to a crushing 10-wicket victory over New Zealand in the ICC Under-19 World Cup group match at Buffalo Park in East London. Dera Ghazi Khan region police are on high alert following reports that the banned terrorist organization TTP has launched a new wing comprising highly trained, well-equipped and ferocious militants to specifically target the Punjab police personnel to make inroads into the province's territory. PTI witnessed an eventful day with its candidates and supporters taking to the streets across the country on the call of incarcerated leader Imran Khan facing police crackdown in several places and its main leadership unveiling the election manifesto promising radical constitutional reforms and a society where both the rich and poor are treated equally by the law. PMLN Supreme Leader Nawaz Sharif has said that Pakistan of 2017, which he left, is not visible today, as unemployment and poverty have made lives of the people miserable. He was speaking at a public meeting in Sialkot, and the former Prime Minister said those who brought about this state of affairs in the country and caused unemployment, poverty and inflation have done great injustice to the masses. Legendary singer Rahat Fateh Ali Khan has apologized and owned that video circulating of him physically abusing his student after it generated online furor at his behavior. Earlier in the day, a video doing the rounds on media showed the singer beating ostensibly a domestic servant repeatedly over a missing bottle. The video generated intense criticism by netizens towards the singer. In an apology video that was issued later, the singer said it was a personal matter between a teacher and a student and identified a person, Naveed Hasnain, saying he was the individual being beaten in the video. Videos of 2 influential Pakistani singers committing acts of violence have emerged in the past week. Rahat Fateh Ali Khan and Bilal Sayyed. Sayyed was performing at a Punjab group of colleges school for their youth music festival when he hurled a microphone into the crowd, presumably of young students, for undisclosed reasons. And a few days later, the netizens have seen this recorded video of Rahat Fateh Ali Khan emerging. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have in the world news for you this morning. I do have your financial news, and we'll get that to you. It is coming up. Stay with us right here on Community Radio Networks. I have in the world news for you this morning. I do have your financial news, and we'll get that to you. It is coming up. Stay with us right here on Community Radio Networks. All right, as I promised, we'll get you your financial news here coming up, getting this week started with all this information ready for you to take on the day. I do have your financial news coming up, but before that, I'd like to thank all the supporters of community radio networks, Discount Power, Houston EB5, Aluwalia Law Offices, the Wyndham Hotel in Irving, Digital X-Force, Kinza Law, My Kolachi, Shri Vimal, including their Eggholic restaurant, also Mystic Mandala and Flash Brush Productions. We'll talk more details about our supporters a little later in the program, but let's get you your financial news first, and we'll start with the foreign currency exchange rates. The Indian rupee is at 83.13, Pakistani rupee at 275.84, Bangladeshi taka at 109.68, the Sri Lankan rupee at 317.83, Nepalese rupee 133.08, the British pound at 0.79, the euro at 0.92, the Canadian dollar 1.34, the Australian dollar 1.52, Mexican peso 17.17, Chinese yuan 7.18, Japanese yen 90.31, the Thai baht at 35.48, and the Turkish lira at 30.35. Markets open the week on a cautious note as investors readied for central bank updates on the outlook for interest rates and brace for a deluge of earnings. On Wall Street, equity futures contracts steady after the S&P 500 closed out a third week of gains and finished last week near its record high. Brent oil prices have jumped as much as 1.5% in early trading before paring gains to around $84 a barrel. They rose more than 6% last week as regional tensions deepened, and the Houthis, an Iran-backed militant group in Yemen, has struck a tanker carrying Russian fuel. The nation's tax filing season begins today as the IRS starts accepting and processing 2023 federal tax returns. Taxpayers have until the 15th of April to file without an extension. The IRS expects to receive nearly 130 million individual tax returns by the deadline, with more than 93% of those expected to be e-filed. You can file forms such as 1040, 1040A, and 1040EZ electronically, or mail a paper return to the agency, but the fastest and easiest way to file and receive refunds is through electronic filing and direct deposit. A new report shows childcare expenses are now more than you'd pay for college. According to this report, 2024 cost of care report, parents on average spend 24% of their household income on childcare, with nearly half, that's 47%, spending more than $18,000 a year, and a staggering 20% spending more than $36,000 annually. Given these statistics, it is said that the average weekly childcare cost by the type of care, with nanny's cost is about $766, daycare cost is $321, family care center cost is $230, and babysitter cost is $192. And the most expensive states for daycare are Washington, D.C., Alaska, Massachusetts, Washington, and California. And on the other hand, the least expensive states for daycare are Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, West Virginia, and Alabama. Chip makers are flourishing as the world has started to invest heavily in AI. With new technology, it'll continue to rapidly develop. Reddit Inc. is weighing feedback from early meetings with potential investors in its IPO that it should consider a valuation of at least $5 billion. The San Francisco-based social media company and its advisors are targeting a valuation in the mid-single-digit billions. And the ultimate figure will depend on the IPO market's nascent recovery. Tesla says the latest recall because of a major problem with a backup camera. The camera may not work while the car is in reverse, and that can increase the risk of a crash. The recall is for certain models, Y, S, and X vehicles from last year, 2023. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says Tesla claims the problem can be fixed with an online software update, and the company will start notifying owners about this fix in late March. Elon Musk completed the purchase of X, which was formerly Twitter, in 2022, and he laid off multiple employees, including those working in the trust and safety teams. The company has now announced it will hire 100 full-time employees for a new trust and safety center of excellence in Austin, Texas. Few things can stand in the McDonald's way, it seems. Wall Street is expecting more growth ahead of the company's latest quarterly results on the 5th of February. This comes as tightening wallets, rising costs, and fears around weight loss drugs impact hammered fast food food stocks last year. But business at the Big Mac maker keeps chugging along as consumers stay hungry for value meals. Its adjusted earnings per share are expected to jump 7% to 2.82, while revenue is expected to grow 9% to 6.5 billion. After a difficult year filled with boycotts and falling sales, Bud Light is kicking off 2024 with a new character. He's got a Bud Light branded jacket, metallic sunglasses, and a mustache. This, according to an exclusive teaser that was shared for the upcoming Bud Light Super Bowl commercial. And in that short clip, a man in a Broncos jersey holding a Bud Light sees the character and asks, "Are you?" with an awestruck look on his face. And then as Bud Light logo appears on the screen, a voice can be heard saying, "Let's go," loudly. We have a starry night here with ISS sharing pictures of the Earth against a starlit sky. The International Space Station has captured a stunning image of Earth that resembles a famous painting by Vincent van Gogh. The picture, which was shared on the ISS official Instagram account, shows Earth's atmospheric glow in a starry sky as the orbital complex soared 258 miles above the Pacific Ocean, northwest of Papua New Guinea. NASA's history-making Ingenuity Mars helicopter has ended its mission at the Red Planet after surpassing expectations and making dozens more flights than planned. While the helicopter remains upright and in communication with ground controllers, imagery of its January 18th flight sent to Earth this week indicate one or more of its rotor blades sustained damage during landing and is no longer capable of flight. New research shows the religious landscape in the U.S. is changing as more and more people are starting to identify as religiously unaffiliated. We know these days you just can't get enough of Taylor Swift, and honestly wish they would show her more during the Chiefs games. But for those of you who need a little more Swift in your life, all we have to say is 2 is better than 1. The Spring Taylor Con is coming to Dallas. A 2-day fan fest celebrating all things Taylor Swift will include dance parties, lip-sync battles, an Eras costume catwalk, and more. Taylor Con takes place 15th and 16th of March at the Hilton in Dallas, and tickets are available right now. 2 Texans had the great fortune of finding these lottery tickets that were drawn last year, both of which turned out to be big winners. 2 Texans, one from El Paso and the other from Kerrville, became overnight millionaires after finally claiming their prizes and sat unclaimed for months. El Paso winner claimed a Mega Millions prize, which was purchased last August, and the Kerrville won a $1 million prize of a Powerball ticket purchased last October. Vladimir Zelensky declared his personal income for the first time since the outbreak of war with Russia as part of his effort to increase transparency in his government. It is said that he earned far more before entering politics when he was a popular television entertainer and ran a major production company. A ship is blocked by protesters at a Melbourne port is due to arrive in Sydney before travelling further up the eastern coast to Brisbane. Last week, dozens of people attempted to stop the Zim Ganges container ship from reaching the port of Melbourne, with police eventually deploying pepper spray to break up that blockade. Port Melbourne handles about 8,850 containers a day and is Australia's largest commercial port, and the protests had effectively halted operations for almost 4 days, according to the Victorian International Container Terminal. The UK will take steps to ban disposable vapes as it seeks to curb the alarming rise in youth vaping throughout the country. In a statement released ahead of a school visit today, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said he was announcing this new legislative package to ban disposable vapes as part of his commitment to bring about the first smoke-free generation. At a time when most companies are asking their employees to return to office full-time post-pandemic, Germany is all set to try a 4-day work week from the 1st of February. China Evergrande Group was ordered to be liquidated by a Hong Kong court, a stunning legal coda for the world's most indebted property developer. A wind-up could end up in management being replaced and addressing some issues. And the ruling today cements the home builder carrying 2.39 trillion yuan, which is $333 billion of liabilities, as the most prominent symbol so far of China's real estate crisis, which has crumpled economic growth and hurt consumer confidence. Italian super sports car maker Lamborghini just scored a century in Indian sales, but seeks ease in taxation and better infrastructure to sell more. The company, which retails cars upwards of 5 crore rupees, had its best year in the country as it sold 103 cars last year, clocking a growth of 12% over 92 cars it sold in the previous year. The Adani Group's flagship company can deliver a gain of more than 50%, according to Cantor Fitzgerald and Company, adding that the firm is central to India's economic ambitions. Minutes away from Lakshman Narasimha's Pune house stands the Starbucks Koregaon Park store. My mother, who now lives with me in Seattle, taught me in that primary school that it's less than 400 meters from that store, he said. And I had no idea I would even be leading Starbucks one day. And under his watch, the company is widening its India play. Retailers are flocking to Tier 2 cities where rapid growth in infrastructure and an expanding working population are creating new pockets of consumption, while local brands also cashing in on the market potential of these opportunities. Global ones like Zara, H&M, Adidas, Nike, Starbucks, Uniqlo and Marks & Spencer are fast expanding their footprint in non-metros. The Indian economy is projected to grow close to 7% in the financial year 24-25 that starts this April. An Indian benchmark indices BSE, Sensex and Nifty 50 witness a significant surge in their value today due to buying activity in the banking sector and positive global market cues. Technology is enabling insurance companies to emulate the model of mutual funds managed through digital subscriptions, selling sachet products with low premiums that remain profitable for the industry. Reliance Industry is India's most valuable company, saw its shares surge over 5% today, reaching a new 52-week high of 2,826 rupees. Piramal Enterprises has announced the sale of its 20% direct investment in Sri Ram Investment Holdings to Sri Ram Ownership Trust for 1,440 crore rupees. And biometrics-based immigration checks at Indian airports very soon. The Indian government planning to implement a faster biometrics-based process for international passengers to expedite immigration checks at airports, and this initiative is part of the government's strategy to develop India's airports as global transit hubs, and the airports of New Delhi, Mumbai and Bengaluru will introduce automated immigration clearances allowing international entries and departures without any physical passport verification. Prime Minister Modi addressed the 7th edition of the Pariksha Pe Charcha at the Bharat Mandapam in Delhi. At this public event, he interacted with exam warriors and discussed several topics with them. This includes the use of mobile phones, parent-child relationships, and choosing a specific stream, among others. Countries that introduced land reforms to unleash corporate and cooperative farming potential based on the latest technologies ushered in an agricultural revolution. With the transformation in the mode of production, not only the yield per acre of crops went up at an unprecedented pace, but a huge middle class emerged, widening prosperity in the countryside. High economic growth in regional countries such as China, India and Bangladesh can be explained by timely land reforms. The State Bank of Pakistan today held its key rate at 22% for the 5th policy meeting in a row. And with the International Monetary Fund estimating a cut in the consolidated development program of the federal government and provinces, the caretakers in the center are seeking over 201 billion rupee reduction in the federal development budget alone for the current fiscal year. Bears took charge of the Pakistan Stock Exchange today as the benchmark KSE 100 index lost over 1,000 points on foreign selling ahead of the Monetary Policy Committee meeting. The real estate sector holds eminent status in Pakistan. From an investment viewpoint, it has offered lucrative returns primarily due to appreciation in land value, while rental yields remain subdued, mostly below the country's risk-free rate. And ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have in the financial news for you. But we will have your final segment coming up, where we'll get you some stories from the annals of history that happened on today's date, which is the 29th of January. Stay with us right here on Community Radio Networks. Right here on Community Radio Networks, we will now get you some stories from the annals of history that happened on today's date, which is the 29th of January. It was Edgar Allan Poe's famous poem called The Raven, beginning once upon a midnight dreary. That was published on today's date in the 1845 in the New York Evening Mirror. Now, his very dark and macabre work reflected his own tumultuous and difficult life. But that poem, as well as 6 years later, his short story, MS Found in a Bottle, won $50 in a story contest. He edited a series of literary journals, including the Southern Literary Messenger in Richmond and Burton's Gentleman's Magazine. But his macabre work often portraying motiveless crimes and intolerable guilt that induces growing mania in his characters was a significant influence on such European writers as Charles Baudelaire, Stephen Mayame, and even Dostoevsky. It was on today's date that his Raven was published in the New York Evening Mirror. And we are talking about Edgar Allan Poe. And on today's date in 1861, Kansas is admitted to the Union as a free state. It was the 34th state to join the Union, and the struggle between pro and anti-slave forces in Kansas was a major factor in the eruption of the Civil War. On the 29th of January in 1915, in the Argonne region of France, German Lieutenant Erwin Rommel leads his company in the daring capture of 4 French blockhouses, the structures used on the front to house artillery positions. He crept through the French wire first and then called for the rest of his company to follow him. When they hung back after he had repeatedly shouted his orders, he crawled back, threatening to shoot the commander of his lead platoon if the other men did not follow him. The company finally advanced, capturing the blockhouses and successfully combating an initial French counterattack before they were surrounded, subjected to heavy fire, and forced to withdraw. He was awarded the Iron Cross, first class, for his bravery in Argonne, and he was the first officer of his regiment to be so honored. Where Rommel is, there is the front became a popular slogan within his regiment. The bravery and ingenuity he displayed through the Great War, even in light of the eventual German defeat, led to Rommel's promotion through the ranks of the army in the post-war years. He was at the head of the 7th Panzer Division that invaded France with devastating success at the beginning of the Second World War, and promoted to general and later to field marshal. He was sent to North Africa at the head of the German forces sent to aid Hitler's ally Benito Mussolini. Known as the Desert Fox, Rommel engineered impressive victories against Britain in Libya and Egypt before his troops were decisively defeated in El Alamein in Egypt in 1943 and forced to retreat from the region. Suspected by Hitler of conspiring against him in the so-called July plot, Rommel was presented with an ultimatum: suicide with a state funeral and protection for his family, or trial for high treason. He chose the former, taking poison pills in 1944, and was buried with full military honors. That, ladies and gentlemen, was Erwin Rommel, who, on today's date in 1915, in the Argonne region, led his company to that daring capture. On the 29th of January 1936, the U.S. Baseball Hall of Fame elects its first members in Cooperstown, New York. Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth, Honus Wagner, Christy Mathewson, and Walter Johnson. The Hall of Fame actually had its beginnings the year before, when plans were made to build a museum devoted to baseball and its 100-year history. A private organization based in Cooperstown called the Clark Foundation thought that establishing the Baseball Hall of Fame in their city would help to reinvigorate the area's depression-ravaged economy by attracting tourists. And to help sell the idea, the foundation advanced the idea that the U.S. Civil War hero Abner Doubleday invented baseball in Cooperstown. But the story, of course, proved to be phony. But baseball officials, eager to capitalize on the marketing and publicity potential of a museum to honor the game's greats, gave their support to the project anyways, in preparation for the dedication of the Hall of Fame in 1939, thought by many to be the centennial of baseball. The Baseball Writers Association of America chose the 5 greatest superstars of the game as the first class to be inducted. Ty Cobb was the most productive hitter in history. Babe Ruth was both an ace pitcher and the greatest home run hitter to play the game. Honus Wagner was a versatile star shortstop and batting champion. Christy Mathewson had more wins than any pitcher in National League history. And Walter Johnson, considered one of the most powerful pitchers to ever have taken the mound. Today, with approximately 350,000 visitors per year, the Hall of Fame continues to be the hub of all things baseball. But the first members were elected on today's date in 1936. And in 1958, on today's date, one of Hollywood's most enduring marriages begins when Paul Newman weds Joanne Woodward in Las Vegas. The two actors had met first early in the 50s while working in New York City on a Broadway production of the romantic drama called Picnic. He had a supporting role and filled in for the show's star, while she was the understudy to play the female leads. They were both members of Lee Strasberg's prestigious Actors Studio, alongside Marlon Brando, James Dean, and Rod Steiger. After the play's success, Newman and Woodward both headed to Hollywood, where he signed a contract with Warner Brothers, and she began working with 20th Century Fox. They were married on today's date in the year 1958. They both celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary in 2008. Later that year, Newman was set to direct a stage production of John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men at the Westport County Playhouse in Westport, Connecticut, where he's the artistic director. He withdrew from the production citing health reasons, and it was later reported that he had been diagnosed with lung cancer. He died in 2008 at the age of 83. American folk trio was in the news on today's date in the year 1962. It was the American folk trio Peter, Paul, and Mary that took a decisive step on their path to success on today's date in 1962 when they signed their first recording contract with Warner Brothers. Peter, Paul, and Mary didn't revolutionize folk music the way Bob Dylan did. Dylan's songwriting fundamentally altered and then ultimately transcended the folk idiom itself, while Peter, Paul, and Mary didn't even write their own material. They were good-looking, crowd-pleasing performers first and foremost, hand-selected and molded for success by a Greenwich Village impresario named Albert Grossman. And yet, in their good-looking, crowd-pleasing way, Peter, Paul, and Mary helped make Dylan's revolution possible, both by popularizing his songs and by proving the commercial potential of serious folk music in doing so. They released this biggest hit ever, Blowin' in the Wind, written by a new client of Grossman's named Bob Dylan, the first sample of Dylan's work that most of the world would ever hear.
How many years must one man have before he can hear people cry? How many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Stanley Kubrick's black comic masterpiece called Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, opens in theaters to both critical and popular acclaim on today's date in 1964. The movie's popularity was evidence of changing attitudes towards atomic weapons and the concept of nuclear deterrence. And the movie focused on the actions of this rogue U.S. officer who believes that communists are threatening the precious bodily fluids of Americans. Without authorization, he issues orders to U.S. bombers to launch atomic attacks against the Soviet Union. And when it becomes evident that some of the bombers may actually drop their atomic payloads, American president frantically calls his Soviet counterpart. The Russian leader informs that an atomic attack on the Soviet Union will automatically unleash the terrible doomsday machine, which will snuff out all life on the planet. That, ladies and gentlemen, was the movie Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, that opened in theaters on today's date. And particularly after the frightening Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, when nuclear annihilation seemed a very real possibility, the American public was increasingly willing to question the nation's reliance on nuclear weapons. So this movie that opened in 1964 on today's date was evidence of changing attitudes towards atomic weapons and the concept of nuclear deterrence. On the 29th of January in 1979, Deng Xiaoping, Deputy Premier of China, meets President Jimmy Carter, and together they sign historic new accords that reverse decades of U.S. opposition to the People's Republic of China. He lived out a full and complete transformation of China. The son of a landowner, he joined the Chinese Communist Party and participated in Mao Zedong's Long March in 1934. And in 1945, he was appointed to the party's Central Committee, and with the 1949 victory of the Communists in the Chinese Civil War, he became the regional party leader of southwestern China. But it was on today's date that he met President Jimmy Carter. We have Brenda Spencer, who is the person who killed 2 men and wounded 9 children as they enter the Grover Cleveland Elementary School in San Diego. On today's date in the year 1979, Spencer blazed away with rifle shots from her home directly across the street from the school. After 20 minutes of shooting, police surrounded her home for 6 hours before she surrendered. Asked for some explanation for the attack, she allegedly said, "I just don't like Mondays. I did this because it's a way to cheer up the day. Nobody likes Mondays." She was only 16 years old at the time of her murderous attack. A problem child who was widely known as a drug abuser with a violent streak repeatedly broke the windows of the Cleveland school with her BB gun. Still, her father gave her a .22 semi-automatic rifle and ammunition as a Christmas gift at the end of 1978. And this seemed to inspire her into more grandiose plans, and she started telling her classmates that she was going to do something to get on TV. When that Monday morning rolled out, the principal of Cleveland Elementary was opening the gates of the school when she started firing her rifle from across the street. And of course, it was her hatred for the first day of the school week that was later memorialized by Bob Geldof, the leader of the rock group the Boomtown Rats, in the song called "I Don't Like Mondays." And on the 29th of January in the year 2002, in his first State of the Union address since the September 11th attacks, President George W. Bush describes Iraq, Iran, and North Korea as an axis of evil. Just over a year into his presidency and several months into a war which would eventually become the longest in American history, he identified the 3 countries as the major nodes of a wide-ranging and highly dangerous network of terrorists and other bad actors threatening the U.S. The speech outlined the logic behind his war on terror, a series of military engagements which would define U.S. foreign policy for the next 2 decades. His speechwriter, David Frum, is credited with joining and coining that term, axis of evil, which was meant to evoke the Axis powers against which the U.S. and its allies fought in World War II. The Bush administration wanted to emphasize the outstanding threat posed by these 3 terror states, arguing that each was in the process of building weapons of mass destruction and supporting terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda. His father, the former President George H.W. Bush, had invaded Iraq in 1990 after repelling the Iraqi invasion of neighboring Kuwait, but left Saddam Hussein in power. After 9/11, George W. Bush's administration waited less than a month before invading Afghanistan and deposing the Taliban regime there. It was not long before he turned his attention to regime change in Iraq, although there were no direct links between Iraq, Iran, and North Korea. Iraq and Iran, in fact, were commonly understood to be geopolitical enemies. That concept of an axis of evil, united in its desire to harm Americans, proved useful to those making the case for a second invasion of Iraq. These were some of the stories from the annals of history that happened on today's date, the 29th of January. We are expecting above normal temperatures today to continue through the rest of the week, with highs generally in the 60s. And so these final days of January will be very nice, with sunshine, mild breezes, and well above normal temperatures across North Texas. Highs will climb into the mid to upper 60s to even touching 70. We'd like to give huge thanks that's going out for the support at Community Radio Networks, which comes from Mr. Malik Jamal with Discount Power, also Mr. Pardeep Kumar with Houston EB5, Attorney Pallavi Aluwalia, and you can reach her at aluwalialaw.com. Also the Wyndham Hotels on Airport Freeway and near the airport, and they have the most beautiful banquet halls for your next event. Digital X-Force, headed by Mr. Lalit Aluwalia, and they bring you your cyber report every week, and I actually get it to you right here on Community Radio Networks every Saturday. Attorney Kimberly Kinzer can handle your immigration cases, kinzerlaw.com. The Michaelachi restaurant in Plano, and now their new location at the Ruchi Palace, where they also have a banquet hall and can cater your next event. Also, big thanks going out to Sri Vimal from their huge showroom in Irving on 183 and MacArthur, as well as their Agaholic restaurant, which is on MacArthur and 635. We have Mystic Mandala, and I'll tell you about some of their events coming up just now when I make your social calendar. And huge thanks going out to Flashbrush Productions. Tomorrow is the 30th of January, and the Mahatma Gandhi Memorial of North Texas is inviting you to a tribute to Gandhiji, a moment of silence and offering flowers at 5 o'clock tomorrow at the Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Plaza, and that is in Irving. Of course, you all do remember that tomorrow is the 30th of January, and that's the date that he left this world. Beauty of Humanity is having their annual fundraising event at the Doubletree by Hilton in Richardson. The chief guest is Azhar Aziz. And if you need more information on this event, which is happening on Saturday, the 3rd of February, please call Shazia, and I'll give you her number, 972-948-1965, 972-948-1965. 1965. There's a Hunger Mitau initiative supporting North Texas Food Bank through pre-loved ethnic wear, calling on fashionistas to donate new or pre-loved saris, ethnic men and women party wear and accessories, which will be sold and auctioned at a later date to raise funds for the North Texas Food Bank. You can, of course, coordinate your drop-offs depending on which city you are in, but I'll give you one of the numbers. Let's give you the number of Mayuri in Plano. The number there is 972-489-5634, 972-489-5634. We have a ghazal night that is coming up with Imran Seher live in concert. He's the voice of Jagjit Singh, and he'll be singing all of Jagjit Singh's ghazals and does a beautiful job there. This is going to be at that banquet hall at the Michaelachi Ruchi Palace in Carrollton, and the date is the 10th of February. Please mark that, and if you need more information, please call Andy. Andy's number is 817-883-3333, 817-883-3333. The Grand Center in Plano is presenting Celebrate Love, a Valentine's party, on Friday the 16th of February at 8 o'clock at the Grand Center. They have exotic drinks, cocktails, appetizers, food, live DJ, live singing, lots of entertainment. Tickets are available at sulekha.com, but you can also call Gagan Bhalla at 469-878-1112. The music is going to be provided by DJ Manish with Music Masti Magic. Nasir Siddiqui of Hiba Entertainment and Vimal Kansara are presenting Daisy Shah and Ali Kuli Mirza. This is a Bollywood Valentine night on Saturday, the 17th of February at Vimal's venue, and that is on Airport Freeway, where they have the Sri Vimal's store, and this is in Irving. Now, if you need more information, you can call Vimalji at 817-881-2121. This is a Bollywood Valentine night with Daisy Shah and Ali Kuli Mirza. Helping Hearts and Caring Souls are having their annual fundraising event on the 17th of February to support people with disabilities. This is going to be on the 17th of February at the Crystal Banquet Hall in Plano, and your entertainment that evening is a tribute to Madam Noor Jahan by her granddaughter, Saima Jahan, who's going to be in Dallas on the 17th of February. For more information, you can call Anjum Anwar for this event, 469-556-6475, 469-556-6475. Also, the Spirit of Innovation Technology competition next month, and the Business Plan competition in April, organized by the U.S.-India Chamber of Commerce. And the Chamber would also like for you to mark the 1st of March for the 8th Annual Women's Conference that provides professional and entrepreneurial women with a platform to be inspired, to network, and to grow. More information is available on their website, which is USICOC, U.S. India Chamber of Commerce, usicoc.org. A English family play called Maya on the 2nd of March at 5 o'clock at the NAC Theatre in Frisco, written and directed by Sumit Reiki. Jubin Nautiyal is going to be live in concert on Sunday, the 3rd of March, at the Curtis Culwell Center. And you can call Mohammed Abbas for more information on this concert. His number is 214-679-6818. 360 Shows, Diamond Productions, and Universal Entertainment bringing you Jubin Nautiyal live in concert Sunday, the 3rd of March. And your tickets are also available at tinyurl.com/Jubin Dallas. Mystic Mandala is presenting the Festival of Colors, the 14th annual Festival of Colors, or the Holy Mela, on the 23rd. It's Saturday, the 23rd of March at the South Fork Ranch. And you can get more information at DallasFestivalOfColors.com. Texas Women's Society is presenting the McKinney Asian Festival at Glenn Mitchell Memorial Park on Louisiana Street in McKinney on the 23rd of March. And we are thrilled to invite you to the 2024 Pratham Dallas Fort Worth Gala, an extraordinary evening dedicated to empowering children and young people in India to transform their lives and communities. Saturday, the 20th of April on your calendars, please, at the Omni Frisco Hotel on Cowboys Way. And this year's gala theme is Changing Lives, Transforming Communities, and will highlight the remarkable impact of Pratham's work in expanding access to quality learning opportunities. Do mark your calendars for the 20th of April and join us for an unforgettable evening of exquisite dining, inspiring company, and a cause that truly matters. Ladies and gentlemen, that's your social calendar as it stands on this Monday morning. It's the 29th of January, and I have gotten you all the information that you need to take on the day. We get it to you every morning right here on Community Radio Networks. You can also reach us at crn.guru, and I'm going to give you my direct number for those of you who would like to reach me. It's 214-675-1754. 214-675-1754.
चले संग चले सभी गुल अपना है ये ख्याल अपना है ये ख्याल तू चले संग चले सभी गुल अपना है ये ख्याल अपना है ये ख्याल है ऐसा लगे वहाँ रोज खिले गुल जहाँ तेरा आना जाना है ऐसा लगे गुल गलती से बन गए रब ने था तुझे बनाना ये महका मौसम हुस्न का आलम है तेरी ही परछाई अपना है ये ख्याल अपना है ये ख्याल तू चले संग चले सभी गुल अपना है ये ख्याल अपना है ये ख्याल देना तकड़दारी ना देना तकड़दारी ना देना तकड़दारी ना तेरे नाना देना तकड़दारी ना जाना तेरा ख्याल जाना तेरा क्या हाल तेरे जिया की ताल सुरमई आँखों में है शबाब जैसे खिले गुलाब देखे ऐसे ही ख्वाब हम कई तेरे आने से यार ऐसा आया निखार जैसे आई बहार हो नहीं तेरे होठों के जाम पी लूं सुबह शाम तू तो मेरा